Welcome back to Double Fries No Slaw, an eventful few days through the holiday, and we're going to have some fun here today on Sunday. Now listen, Florida State's got some good news coming a little bit later today too, so make sure you're locked in with the channel and you don't miss that. But first, I'm sure you guys have seen some of the victory laps that have been taken on social media from the settlement, full details coming out, some things that we knew in there, some things that we hadn't learned just yet that were pretty big and we can talk about here in just a moment. I did a more full-length video on this over on College Football Addiction. I'll link that at the very end so you can click on it and watch it if you want, but we're going to have some fun over here today. I will also just very quickly tell you that we will have tailgate tickets dropping within a week or two for the Alabama game. We'll also do our giveaway with Emerald Medical for 2 tickets to the Alabama FSU game. No purchase necessary, so stay on the lookout for those in upcoming videos. Let's jump into this. I'll talk more about what Florida State got out of this settlement that maybe we didn't know. I'll give some highlights on that if you're interested. If you want to just skip ahead to that, that's fine. But poke some fun over on College Football Addiction at some people who were very adamant that FSU was going to tuck their tail between their legs and go running because there was no chance in hell that they could come up with any kind of a win through this legal process. And unfortunately for those haters, that just wasn't the case. Now, we haven't had a ton to celebrate around FSU for the last 18 months or so, and so we're going to take a chance to do a victory lap or 2 or 3 or 5 here today. Enjoy some of this content that I've taken the time to pull from different videos on the internet. This first one, I think you'll enjoy it. We'll watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
And the number for them to get out, I doubt it's going to be this astronomical $400 million number, but it's not going to be that far off of that. And then you're probably going to have to get a private equity company or something involved in this to try and help pinch in, and TV networks, and they'll figure out a way to get that done. But the ACC's intention needs to be a rigorous enough process, a difficult enough process, and a number that is scary enough to deter Clemson or North Carolina wanting to take the same path.
It's not going to be $400 million. That was Josh Graham on The Drive, who was very pro ACC. I watched several of his videos last night in preparation for this. It's not going to be $400 million, but it's going to be very close to that. It's going to be a rigorous, a scary number that won't let Clemson or UNC do the same thing. $75 million in 2030. I don't know how scary that number is. It's maybe more than me or you have, but I don't know that he got what he was asking for. Let's go back to Josh real quick.
Outcome number 2. The courts ruled the grant of rights is ironclad, which means FSU, you're going to stay in the ACC through 2036. This is where I've been for a while. Sorry, FSU. Nothing you can do about it. You're going to stay in the league till 2036. The grant of rights is ironclad. And the number for them to get out,
ironclad, our very favorite word when it comes to this lawsuit, these settlements, this grant of rights. Ironclad. It was everyone that was pro ACC, anti FSU in Clemson. It was everyone's favorite word. Unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. Unfortunately for the ACC, unfortunately for the FSU haters out there, that just isn't what ended up happening. Now, he just had given you 3 scenarios. 1 was that Florida State won. 2 was that what he believed was closest or most likely to happen, that Florida State would just get smacked down and the ironclad grant of rights would prevent them from leaving. And then he gave a 3rd one, which we'll watch here in just a second. But I never get tired of hearing the word ironclad. I never get tired of hearing them use that language. Let's watch another one.
So what should Florida State do? For one, they should consider making changes in their leadership. Just for this lawsuit and how damaging it's become. Talking about Alford, their AD, I'm talking about their board of trustees chairman, maybe even their university president too, but maybe we could give him a pass. Don't think that the university president is as involved in athletic matters as the board of trustees chair and the AD might be. Because at a time where they're crying bloody murder, that they don't have enough money, they're costing the school millions in legal costs with this bogus lawsuit that they've pushed?
I don't have an exact number. I am researching that just so that we can poke some fun at this later too. But everybody at Florida State needs to go. You need to fire everybody. Alfred, you got to go. Peter Collins, chair, you got to go. Richard McCullough, maybe you got to go too. Maybe you can stay. But everybody, it's like it's The Apprentice. You're fired. You're fired. You're fired. They should be thrown in jail almost. Now, he didn't say that. But they should all be fired because of the millions of dollars that are being spent on this lawsuit. I don't have the exact numbers. I would venture to guess that based on different reporting of different websites, that Florida State's probably spent about $5 million. I think that's probably pretty liberal. I think that it's more likely they spent less than that, maybe in that 3 to 5 range. They will make that up this year from the ACC's unequal revenue sharing. They will make that up probably threefold, probably closer to $15 million. That they make up this year based on the TV numbers. But this guy thinks everyone needs to be fired for filing this lawsuit. And, you know, the hindsight's 2020 for sure. But wild suggestions that Florida State filed a lawsuit to try and get more. Fire everyone. Alfred, you're out. Collins, you're out. McCullough, yeah, maybe. Hilarious.
Play hardball. I want Clemson and I want Florida State to get nothing. I want them to crawl back with their tail between their legs and beg to be allowed to stay. And I think there's a world where the ACC could do it. The grant of rights, again, the biggest winner of all of this ACC talk, all of the expansion talk, all of the conference realignment is whatever lawyer wrote the contract that gave the media rights to of the ACC members to that grant of rights situation where they can't get out until 2036 without paying $500 million. It is ironclad. It has to be. It has to be airtight. No loopholes at all. Because there's 0% chance Clemson and Florida State would be willing to settle if they thought they could get out of that contract.
Oh, yeah. If I'm Clemson and Florida State, if I think I can win, I don't think I settle.
I think the ACC could have played hardball and won.
They might.
And
they still might.
They could have looked at like gone full Willy Wonka. You lose. You get nothing. You stole fizzy lifting drink. You don't have to do the whole monologue. But you could have. And I kind of wanted to see it.
The monologue is good. The Willy Wonka stuff. Huge Charlie and the Chocolate Factory fan. I enjoyed that. Listen to the sadness. Listen to the pain in his voice. Now that show, honestly, also called The Drive, there on ESPN, 99.9 or something. I don't know. Another ACC apologist. I wish they would have said. I wish that they would have played hardball. Because the ACC's position was so strong, you heard him say it there too, ironclad. Florida State has no chance to get out of this thing. So why are they settling? Well, your logic makes no sense. If the ACC's position was so strong and you were going to, why didn't they play hardball? Maybe the position wasn't quite as strong as you thought. Maybe that the David McKenzie's of the world and the Twitter attorneys of the world, not Doug Rohan, maybe the people that were telling you that it was so strong were wrong. Maybe they didn't have as ironclad of an agreement as you thought because they settled for what? We went to from 572 down to 165 if the Noles announced today. $75 million in 2030. That's what ironclad was. You're dropping half of $500 million. Sorry, can't think of the word. $500 million you're lopping off of that thing because it's ironclad. He has another one here.
Here is my biggest concern. There's actually two of them. The expiration of the league's grant of rights. Obviously, if that gets shortened too much, then the ACC will be at great risk whenever that final is, right? If they lower it from 2036 to 2030, I'm going, that's not that far in the future, and then I really am going to be worried about the future of the ACC starting in 2030. The other one is the proposal that would allot a greater share of revenue to schools based on brand valuation and television ratings. That's bad for parity. I would be more in favor of if you win, you get more money than if we have to evaluate your brand and the biggest brands get more money.
His two biggest concerns. This was earlier this year. This wasn't like way back like some of the other ones that we will show and have shown. This was earlier this year. And he said his two biggest concerns were, one, if the grant of rights gets taken down from 2036 to 2030, ding, 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 that happened, right? Because you can get out now for $75 million in a year from 2030 to 2036. His second concern was if you got paid more because you were a bigger brand and TV eyeballs were on you. And he said both of those things would be bad for the ACC, one for parity, one for the stability of the conference. Well, guess what? Both those things happened. Both those things, your greatest fears as an ACC homer, your greatest fears as an ACC or a FSU hater are now realized. They both absolutely happened. They both are what the crux of the argument is and was, and the settlement is. And unfortunately, your greatest fears, sir, have been realized because exactly what you didn't want to happen, because, you know, the grant of rights was so ironclad, it could never happen, right? It did, unfortunately for you.
I think the ACC is on very firm ground here.
Absolutely, and I think that they've had the upper hand. They've had the higher ground the entire time so far. I mean, I think the ACC's got a great opportunity to not only win this, but to control, you know, the school's fate in some senses. Because
if a favorable settlement is reached between Florida State and the ACC, what do you think North Carolina is going to do?
Yeah.
What do you think North Carolina State's going to do?
I don't think they're going to reach a favorable settlement. The ACC is not incentivized here to help at all. There's no
in any way.
In fact, I would say if you're going to settle with these schools, you have to settle with them in a way where it hurts them. It doesn't help them. Like
I don't know what Florida State thought was going to happen here. And, you know, we're going to talk about taxpayer dollars in sports. Do you guys understand that they are just burning through money that should be supporting students and faculty and staff at Florida State?
So a few clips cut up into one on the Monty Show there. ACC's on solid ground. They have nothing to worry about. Florida State's the one that has stuff to worry about. The settlement, if they settle, it doesn't need to help FSU and Clemson. It needs to hurt them. It needs to hurt their position. It needs to weaken them. And then at the very end, you're turning into a college football show, the Monty Show, and he's worried about taxpayer dollars man, it could be helping the students. It could be helping the students. Have you ever tuned into a college football program or show or any athletics show and they, man, when they lay it on thick, right? Those poor students. Think about how FSU is throwing their students under the bus. I talked about it again with the first couple of clips. The guy that was worried about the money. Oh, man, fire everyone because they're spending $3 to $5 million. I'm not going to act like that's not a lot of money, but they're going to make that up in year one. Oh, but the students. Hilarious. What would you call it? Fake outrage? I don't know. What would you call that? You know, where you, oh my gosh, those poor students. Now the athletic department is going to make $10 to $15+ million a year more while they're in the ACC, and then $30 to $40 to $50 million more once they get to a new conference. But man, those students back in 2024, those students that $3 or $4 or $5 million, my estimate, I don't have those numbers confirmed on what FSU paid for their lawsuit and legal fees and court costs and stuff. Those poor students. Never mind the hundreds of millions of dollars over the span of being in a new conference. Never mind that money. Those poor students. The Monty Show was hilarious with that. I saved the best for last on this one, and I played this a couple of times on College Football Addiction. When somebody repeats a lie, when they repeat a statement over and over and over again, and they just have it so, and if you watch the College Football Addiction video, you'll know what's coming. But when they just have to go back to the well to say the same thing over and over and over again. Here was David McKenzie being asked on another ACC show about the chances of the ACC settling. Will they settle? Will they come off of their position, their ironclad grant of rights. Will they do it? And here was his response.
Yeah, I don't think he folded with the royal flush. And I have stated pretty clearly, and even in discussion with you, that the ACC's case is extraordinarily strong. You know, you're talking about a situation where you have the presidents of both Florida State and Clemson who signed this agreement not once but twice. So
Right.
you have a signed agreement. And when then the question becomes, was there quote unquote performance under the agreement? But what we mean by that, has there been payment? And I think that the questions in a deposition for James Barker of Clemson, John Thrasher, and Eric Barron of Florida State University would be, yeah, we received hundreds of millions of dollars under this agreement. So I think you're going to be able to easily establish a validity of an agreement. So then the question becomes, what defenses do you have to break this agreement? And Florida State has presented nothing, at least in their pleadings, to say, well, this was fraud, this was misrepresentation, the classical defenses that we use to get out of a contract. So why the ACC would fold at this stage, given the strength of their legal position, I think would be questionable to me. I wouldn't believe that they should.
Why would the ACC fold? They've got a royal flush. Any poker fans out there, which everybody has seen the World Series of Poker or whatever, maybe a bunch of you have played poker. Why would you fold with a royal flush? He said that on 2 other interviews that I posted on College Football Addiction. Again, I'll post that video at the end for you if you want to go check out a little more detailed and see me, have a few more victory laps over there. But why would you fold? Why would you ever do it? Maybe, now just maybe, after seeing these clips, after hearing people talk, after looking at, maybe it wasn't so ironclad. Is that a possibility? Is it possible that the thing that you thought was so ironclad just wasn't so ironclad? In every clip that we saw, they like to use that word, don't they? But that's just it just didn't end up being what it was. Here's a long tweet. I won't read the whole thing. The exit fee was never the real barrier. It's the grant of rights. The idea that this ACC so-called exit fee dropping below $100 million suddenly makes it easier for them to leave is a red herring. The real obstacle has never been the exit fee. It's the GOR. Paying the exit fee only gets the school out of the conference. It does nothing to reclaim the media rights they signed away. As long as the grant of rights remains enforceable, the ACC, not FSU or Clemson, controls their media revenue through 2036. That's why their legal arguments have focused on sovereign immunity rather than traditional contract defenses. They aren't fighting the exit fee. They're fighting to break the grant of rights and take their media rights with them. Now, I'll get into what FSU won in just a moment, but let me tell you something. They got their media rights back. They got back what they wanted. They're going to get out at some point, and they're going to take their media rights with them. The grant of rights wasn't worth the piece of paper that it was written on. We'll finish up with this one. Andrew Carter, who shockingly has not tweeted since the settlement details have been released in full, said Florida State and Clemson's lawsuits against the ACC are going nowhere fast. Given that reality, the latest turn in this legal drama makes sense. There may indeed be a settlement here, just not the ones that the schools really wanted. Is Andrew right about that? Did the schools not get what they wanted? Did they not get what they asked for in this settlement? Well, I'd propose to you that Andrew's a little bit right. Part of what Andrew said is right. Florida State and Clemson did not get what they asked for. They did not get what they wanted. Back in 2022, Florida State's athletic director, Michael Alford, asked for one thing. Didn't ask for his media rights back. Didn't ask to leave the conference. Didn't ask to be set free from the ACC's tyranny. No, he just asked for one thing. What did he ask for? He asked for unequal revenue sharing. He said, listen, we get about 7 to 8% of the pie. We're responsible for about 15%. Clemson for a similar 13 to 14. Between Florida State and Clemson, we're making up 30%. Nearly a third of what this conference is worth is due to 2 teams. We're not asking to leave. We're not asking for this, that, and the other. We just want one thing. We just want a little bit more money to be competitive. We're investing our money back into athletics. We're putting what you give us back into our sports programs, and we're trying to be relevant nationally. We don't need the world. We just need you to help us out a little bit, and we'll stay put. We'll stay where we're supposed to be. We'll continue to compete in the ACC. Florida State fans didn't really love that, but hey, we just want a little bit more money to make it a little bit easier for us to compete with the big dogs. We're not asking for the world. So Andrew's a little bit right on this. Florida State didn't get what they asked for. They got so much more. They got way more than they ever asked for. What did they end up getting? Well, they did get the unequal revenue sharing. Florida State and Clemson set to probably make between $8 and $15 million plus per year if their TV numbers continue to stay high, which over the last 5 years, Florida State and Clemson's numbers have been high, even though 3 of those are losing seasons for Florida State, even though Clemson has fallen off from their 2016 to 18 dominance. Florida State's and Clemson's numbers continue to stay high, and I suspect that they will continue to do that. They're playing with a stacked deck. I'll talk about that in just a moment. What else did Florida State get? Not just the unequal revenue. They got their media rights when they leave. They broke the grant of rights. They finished that document. It is no more important. When Florida State and Clemson leave this conference, they will take their media rights with them, as will anyone else. Anyone from Florida State all the way down to Syracuse, Pitt, Boston College, doesn't matter. You will take your media rights with you if and when you leave. What else do they get? They got an exit timeline expedited. We all were nervous about that 2036 number. Hey, we cannot spend 10 more years in this conference. None of us want to spend another day in this conference. I get it. But that exit timeline has certainly been expedited to where now you can leave in 2030 for a pretty nominal amount. $75 million, certainly nothing to laugh at, certainly more than most of us, I would assume, watching this have right now in the bank. But $75 million compared to $572 million is quite a difference. You lopped $500 million off of your exit. So an exit timeline has been expedited. What about this? Veto power. Now, I never heard this. I think we've done over 100 realignment videos. I counted them a couple of days ago. Never in any of this did we ever think that Florida State and Clemson could sit up on top of a perch in this conference and say, we don't like that. Veto. The other 17 presidents in this conference can vote a certain way, and Florida State and Clemson can say, yeah, we don't really like that. I don't think so. It literally is presidential type power. Both houses of Congress can pass a bill. They can send it all the way to the president's desk. And Florida State and Clemson can say, yeah, I don't think so. The settlement grants Florida State and Clemson veto power over changes to the key ACC bylaws, including those related to revenue distribution, withdrawal policies, and the veto rules themselves. You can't even take the veto power away from them. This enhances their influence over the conference's future direction. I believe, and I'm not a political scholar, but I believe if a president or a governor vetoes something, it can go back to that. Like there can be an overrule situation there. There are different levers within the American government and the state government that you can almost overrule a president. Not here, baby. Florida State and Clemson say you ain't doing this, you ain't doing it. Michael Alford never asked for that. Peter Collins never asked for that. So Andrew Carter's right. They didn't get what they wanted. They got what they wanted times 50. Not only is the deck stacked where Florida State's getting more money, an earlier exit, media rights back, veto power. If anyone wants to change that, if anybody wants Florida State to take less money or stay in the conference longer, Florida State and Clemson could say, yeah, I don't think so. Listen, it sounds like a good idea. What, Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Pitt, Cal, what you brought to me was a good idea. We're going to table that. We're going to, you guys figure that out when the big dogs are gone and there is no more veto power. Because once we're gone, you guys run this thing however you want. But for the foreseeable future, as long as we're in here, we call the shots. You guys can call the shots when we're gone. You can figure out, who your next leader is. But for the rest of the time we're in here, we're the leader. Veto power is insane. There's also, quickly, a clause that Florida State and Clemson, any 6 teams, if they leave for the same destination, perhaps a super league provision, they can do that for $75 million today. And they can get out. Now, I don't necessarily know that happens. I think that's kind of a fail-safe that Florida State and Clemson had put in there just in case a super league was to form. I don't think that ends up becoming incredibly relevant like this moment, next year, the year after. Maybe they never even use that. Maybe they just get out in 20. I don't know. But every provision that Florida State could have ever wanted got put into this. And I've mentioned this a couple of times. I'll tell you what I mean. A stacked deck. Florida State already has the biggest brand in the conference, and Clemson along with that. UNC, Miami, big brands as well, right? We won't hide away from those folks. Florida State's already going to get the best eyeballs. Heck, they were top 5 in the ACC last year, going 2-10. And then you look at their yearly schedule. Alabama on the schedule the next 2 years, Georgia the next 2 years after that, Florida every single year, Clemson and Miami, the ACC's 2 other biggest brands, Notre Dame every 3 years. And I would expect with Clemson signing a deal to play Notre Dame every year that you could see something similar with Florida State if they don't just get out of the conference anyway. Florida State already gets the most eyeballs, and Clemson, and then, to a lesser degree, Miami, North Carolina. They already have the biggest brands. But with scheduling changes in the ACC, Florida State's going to continue to play the biggest brands, and they're going to continue to stack the deck in their favor. There will be no way that a Cal could ever work their way up, especially because it's a 5-year rolling average. It's not even just 1 year. Florida State could have a year where they finish 10th, and it's still the last 5 years combined. Florida State's already in that top 5, and this year they're going to improve on that, and they will be in the top 2 once this year is over. Write that down, bookmark it, save it, try to old takes expose me later. When we get to the end of this season, Florida State will be in the top 2 of payouts for the last 5 years of TV viewership, and they'll be there with Clemson. And the deck will only continue to get stacked. They will only get richer and richer under this ACC deal. Now, are they making SEC money? Are they making Big Ten? No, they're not, right? And they're not out of the conference today. That's not the point. They absolutely took the rest of the ACC to the woodshed with this. Again, Clemson as well in that pairing. But they got everything they could have ever asked for and so much more. What's next? What's our timeline look like? When are we getting the heck out of here? That's not this video, right? We'll speculate on other stuff. We'll do more fun realignment videos. I'm sure we're not going anywhere away from that as we continue to hope and pray for the day that we escape this conference. But as for now, the victory lap feels pretty good. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to see what you think. If you want to know more about the actual details of the settlement, this was mostly a victory lap, a fun video. But if you want to get more into the settlement details, I did a video about it on College Football Addiction. You can click the link on the screen right now to watch it. Make sure you're subscribed. More good news coming for the Noles later today. We will talk to you soon on Double Fries, No Slaw.